Welcome to the Self-Educated Economist channel. Today we're starting a new series on personal finances. Uh, I like talking about macroeconomics, and I like talking about what the Fed does, but at the end of the day I want to be able to help people as well. And some of the stuff that I'm going to go over isn't been taught in schools. This will be at least a two-part series, maybe three, but we're going to go over personal finances. And some people may have had accounting classes and difference of things, and this will actually add to that and maybe even simplify some of the stuff in those accounting classes. So let's dive in. And this is an oversimplified way of doing this. To start out with a disclaimer, I cannot give you financial advice. I'm just showing you the way that people overcome being in poverty and things, and how rich people actually do what they do to stay rich or stay wealthy. I prefer the term wealthy. So let's dive in here, and we're going to start with a few terms. It's always good to know where we're starting at. So to start with a few terms, assets. An asset is something that pays you to own it. That's as simple as I know how to put it. A rental house that you're making money off of would be an asset. A stock that pays a 6% dividend, for instance, would be an asset. Let's move on down to liabilities. Liabilities is something that costs you money. Okay, so your car. You have a car payment each month. You have to put gas in it. You have to put oil in it. You have to rotate the tires. It requires maintenance. That is a liability. Anything that costs you money goes under the liability column. Now, let's get down to wealth. If you notice, I haven't wrote a standard definition on the board for wealth. There's a couple different ones. Some people think wealth is money or currency. It's dollars or it's gold. Wealth, the best definition of wealth I have found is if you were to get sick and not be able to work no longer, how long could your assets sustain you? At the point when you can sustain yourself for a full month without working a job, and you have the income from those assets to not work, then you're wealthy. So basically, it's how long, a measure of wealth is how long you can sustain yourself without going to work. And let's move on down. Balance sheet. A balance sheet is basically a balance of all the assets and liabilities for a person or a corporation. So everybody has a balance sheet. Your personal, you do this on a monthly basis without even knowing it. Okay, you got your assets. You know what your house is worth. You know what your cars are worth. If you consider those assets, and they can be assets, and we can get into that a little later on. But basically, this is just how does everything balance out? Do you have more liabilities than you have assets? Okay, let's move on. Profit and loss statement. Now, most people would consider this their bank statement. It'd be where your income comes in and then where your expenses go out. That's all it is. Now, let's put these terms to good use. Over here, we have basically a flow chart. You have income and expense columns up here. You have assets and liability columns down here. Now, basically, the difference between a wealthy person, a middle class person, and a poor person is this flow chart. Now, let's go over a rich person's flow chart, if you would. Rich people buy assets, so we're going to say stocks down here, or rental property under assets. Their liabilities may be a car, you know, a mortgage. Okay. Now, how theirs works is their assets, if you go back to the definition, is something that pays you to own it. These investments put money into the income column. Okay. Then, under the expense column, your liabilities take money out this way. Now, your liabilities, your car, your mortgage, this is stuff that they'd have expenses on, which would be right here. And their stocks, they get their money from stocks, rental properties, or businesses they own. Okay, that's how they get their money. So, let's erase this and let's look at a middle class flow chart. And it goes a little bit different. The middle class starts up here with a job. That's where their income goes. Their liabilities would be their mortgage, their house they live in, be their cars, boats, anything of that nature. And they don't really have very many assets. So how does their flow chart work? Money flows into the job from the job, and it flows down to the liability column and out the expense column this way, allowing them to never get ahead. Now, their only asset, and I'll probably get some kicks on this one, but that's alright, I can debate the issue. Their only asset is going to be that loan, as long for the rental for their house, as long as that loan is less than the percentage rate of that loan is less than the percentage rate of inflation. So, for instance, the CPI for December was 7%. And for instance, if your home loan is a 3% annual rate, you're actually making money on this loan, as long as the rate of inflation stays higher than the loan percentage on that note, which that would be their only asset. And as you can see, they've got a mortgage. They've bought the house. So middle class people usually buy liabilities that they believe to be assets. They believe their house is an asset. They believe their cars is an asset. When actually cars and houses, unless it's a rental house or rental property, or you're renting the car out, or you're using the car for work to where it's making you money, is actually just a liability. So, now let's start into the poor people's balance sheet and check out the difference here. And I'm going to write this one in red. But now on the income side, that poor person may have a job. They have their usual expenses, say rent, and maybe a car payment, etc. But now they have no assets whatsoever, and their liabilities would be like their cars, or their car they own, or maybe any other liability they may have that would actually be cost them money. And because they have no money coming in from the asset column, the advantage the middle class person has is if they get in trouble, they can leverage their house, or they can leverage, maybe go borrow money on their car or something that they could get some money out of to maybe help them out through a tight space. But here, the money comes in through the income, and straight out the expense column. So it's all about cash flow. You got to see which way the cash is flowing and then go from there. So if you're somebody like me that didn't learn this until you were in your 30s and you've already got a house or you've already got difference of things, what are some ways that you can, some things that you can do? Well, you can start your own business on the side, maybe do a side hustle. And you just got to be creative. That is one thing that the public school system tries to stifle. They try to stifle creativity, and they want everybody to, sit in little rows. They want everybody to be graded. It's either a right or a wrong answer. There's not very much debate or critical thinking. The way you get ahead is use your brain and think. Okay, you got to look for opportunities, and you've got to look for ways to where there's a need that you could supply, and you could supply that need. For instance, I've been hearing different reports where people talk about where there's not a whole lot of meat at the store, or there's not a whole lot of food here. Okay, well, if you've got some land, you can grow some vegetables on your own. Or you can go down and take your local farmer. He's stuck his neck out trying to farm and make money at it. Go down and support your local farmer by buying his products. That's just one way to do it. You and your neighbors can get together and plow up a garden and share the profits of it. But there's other ways of doing things. That's just for one instance. You just have to look and see where the need's at, and if you can supply that need, sit down and figure out how much it'll cost and go from there. There may be something you want to do that you've wanted to do for a long time. Maybe start a blog or post, or maybe do there's all kinds of different things. See, that's the thing about it. There's no one cut path to becoming rich or becoming wealthy. And the way is, you just have to be creative and be able to find something that you can, a service or a need, something you can help other people with, and then be able to go from there. You can start your own YouTube channel. Once you get big enough on YouTube, they'll pay you to have a channel. So there's just a few ways you can do it. But you have to think critically for yourself. That is where I'm going to differ from other financial people that's coming out here telling you, okay, you can do this, you can spend this on your credit card, you can pay extra on this, or you can do that. I don't want to tell you those things. I'm going to tell you the end goal is to own assets that pay you to own them. And if it's a business, and we'll get into taxes and stuff later on, but if it's a business that say your buddy says, hey, go in half with me on the business. I'll run the business, and I need you to put up some capital for me and help me get started, and then I'll pay you so much of it back. As long as he's successful, you write up the loan, you're half owner in the business, and you don't even have to be there. You see, there's things. You just got to be creative. So with that, hit the like and subscribe button for more content like this. We're going to get ready to do another video here in a few minutes talking about debt, good debt, bad debt. And if this is something that's interesting, you want to tune in for it, please do.